Government debt is not just a problem in Europe. As we just discussed here in the U.S., California is facing a nearly $20 billion budget gap, and Governor Schwarzenegger is calling for massive cuts to stem the tide of red ink.
So is Meg Whitman as well. In a first on Fox Business interview, the Republican candidate for governor and former eBay CEO explains how she would change her state's spending ways. Welcome, Meg. It's good to see you on the program. Let's get right to it, because people look at California and say, that whole legislature, that whole structure of the way things are set is pretty disastrous. How can you actually change that, and how can you make it a difference when it comes to that gigantic budget deficit?
Yeah. Well, we can absolutely cut government spending in California, but you got to do the hard work to do it. And I've called for $15 billion worth of cuts. First is we got to streamline the number of people who work for the state that has ballooned by 40,000. We have to reform the public employee pensions. We've got to reform welfare, not eliminate it, but reform welfare. And we've got to learn how to do more with less, like we do in business every single day. You got to use technology, you got to streamline how things are done, and you got to root out the fraud and the waste. And that's one of the things I'm doing here in Sacramento, is announcing a new way to get after what could be $6 to $10 billion worth of fraud in the entire California budget.
Well, Meg, you put your finger on pensions, which is one of the toughest things. I talked on Friday to who is living in retirement in Utah, making 115% of his salary in retirement because he worked up his extra hours in the last year that he worked. I mean, it's this kind of thing. On the one hand, that's ridiculous. No state can afford to do that. On the other hand, he put in 25, 30 good years as a fireman. So what are you going to do? What do you tell that guy?
Well, first is, I think Californians are outraged by what he did, which is called pension spiking, which is you go along, you make a certain amount, and then the year before you retire, you work a bunch of overtime, so you increase your pay by 20%. And that's not fair. You know, that just violates people's sense of fairness. Yeah. And the truth is, hardworking Californians now have to solve are responsible for these very significant pension benefits. So we're going to have to increase the retirement age. You know, you can't retire at 50 anymore. And that's what public safety employees retire at. Rank and file civil servants at 55. We're going to have to increase the retirement age. New folks are going to have to come in under a 401k style program as opposed to a defined benefit program. We're going to have to extend vesting periods, and employees are going to have to contribute more to their retirement because we have a pension system that we cannot afford. We've got a $100 billion pension and health care liability that is facing every single California family, and there's no way out of it without change.
Sound a lot like Greece. You know, they retired 52 or 53, and I thought that was ridiculous. Here we are in some of our public jobs in California at 50. You also have to make very tough decisions when it comes to state education. Being a Berkeley graduate, it is not a surprise, and certainly everybody's very worried about the money being cut off of the UC system. How do you say no to an educational system that produces some of the best and the brightest that perhaps we dream go on to start businesses in California that employ people? These are all tough decisions. We'd love to hear your ideas.
Well, we have to protect the UC system. It is the engine of innovation in California. So what I'm proposing is let's run this government more efficiently. Let's get rid of the waste and the fraud. Let's reform pensions, reform welfare, do more with less. And then I want to reinvest $1 billion back into the UC system and the CSU system. This is the engine of innovation in California. There was a study that said that showed the top 15 public universities in America, 6 of them are in California. So as in bad shape as our K through 12 education system is, and we have got to fix that, let's protect what is terrific about California.
I got to ask about immigration, because the cost of immigration, we don't have to deal with Arizona right here, but the cost of education for a state like, of immigration for a state like California is enormous. I was talking to an OBGYN about how much the illegal immigrants that he treats cost him every year and cost the state of California. It is in the billions when you add it all up. How do you deal with that?
Well, not only that, but about 30% of all the prisoners in California State Prison are illegal immigrants, and we don't get reimbursed by the federal government for that. So we've got to take a strong stand on illegal immigration. I am 100% against amnesty. It's not the right thing for California. It's not the right thing for the United States. And then what we got to do is 3 things. We have to secure the border. We've not given the resources to the Border Patrol agents that they need. They need more personnel, they need more technology, and they need better and bigger and much more secure fences. then we've got to hold employers accountable for hiring only documented workers. I mean, illegal immigration is actually illegal. And it is not legal to hire undocumented workers. So we're going to have to hold employers accountable. And I'm for 3 strikes. You know, if you are caught doing it 3 times, you lose your business license and pay a big fine. And then lastly, we have to eliminate sanctuary cities. The worst case in California is the city of San Francisco. If we do those 3 things, we can get our arms around this problem, and we have to.
Just a quick mention here, because we talk a lot about Silicon Valley. You want to talk about an engine of innovation. It's right up there near San Francisco, Palo Alto, San Jose, Alviso, all of those places. How do you continue to at least allow them to generate their business without getting taxed into oblivion? They want to continue to innovate.